Hello, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers Sunday Sermon. This is 4S. I'm David Johnson. Let's get started with Matthew. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm lovely, chap. You didn't say short, so this is going to be another 3 hour monstrosity. Awesome. I love it.
I'm sorry. Welcome to another exciting episode of Shorts. Uh, we
It's gone wrong already.
wait, this is not being edited. We have Matthew. He says that he's lovely, but we can see your image, brother. Um,
This is lovely this is lovely in English.
I see.
We're very different to you guys.
All right. What we are going to do, this really was billed to be a short. And if I had done it by myself, it would have been a longish short, somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. It's not uncommon for my shorts, which have a goal of between 5 and 10 minutes. But in this case, we're dealing with stats. And I wanted to get someone who has a better stat brain than me, and I wanted to talk about some of the implications of these stats and go just a little bit deeper. So this is one of these shows where I've held it in the queue for a while until I could get the best podcaster that I could find for this. That person
You're
not
still
being
waiting, I
available.
assume.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. I preempted. What are you talking about?
That's okay. We ended up with Matt, which is a really, really good fourth choice. Really good. Solid fifth, at least.
Yeah. That high. Single digits. I'll go with that.
So, Matt, before we get into this is a stats heavy type of thing. One of the reasons I wanted to do this with someone else is because I'm not sure how I feel about stats. I'm not a huge stat guy, and when I make arguments, sometimes I get accused of the fallacy of ad populum, and you're just looking at statistical things. This many people believe this, and that doesn't make a thing necessarily true simply because people believe it, unless the only true thing you're going for is the number of people who believe it. And even then, the stats, I don't know how much I trust them. So there are two camps that you can be in. You can be in the numbers don't lie camp, or you can be in the lies, damn lies, and statistics camp. And I think I'm probably closer to the lies, damn lies, and statistics camp. But what about you? Are you more trusting of stats and the numbers can't lie, or where do you lie on that spectrum?
I'm more in the first one. Numbers don't lie, but what can lie is a representation of those numbers.
Mhm.
Like let's just pick a random example out of the UK. Let's just say something like 30% of people who contract this really nasty virus die. Okay, that sounds scary.
Mhm.
But if the true number is only 3 people a year catch this really nasty virus, then that means one person a year dies. So if you put it in its proper context, then it's not scary. But if you just put the headline 30% of people die, then actually you don't want that virus. But if only 3 people a year catch it, then you don't really need to fear the virus. So, you know, properly contextualize is the key to stats. The stats probably never lie, but the representation of those stats can be dishonest.
Okay, so I can appreciate that, and I agree with most of that, but I think even the stats can lie, and the numbers can lie, because you have to trust the methodology. And the methodology often is colored by the people doing the stats and what information they're trying to bring out. So, and even if you have good methodology, I know that there's kind of a science to statistics, but even if you have good methodology and you sample 1,000 people for a thing, and you get a very good statistical sample mix of people, you still only have 1,000 people. All right.
Mhm.
And so that doesn't mean that the numbers you come up with at 1,000 people are going to represent a much larger percentage of the population, because there are lots of things that can affect those numbers. Lots of things. Ask people how they feel about a new Apple product. You will get you can ask 1,000 people, but if you camp out at an Apple store, you're going to get uh, responses that are very different than if you camp out at a Microsoft store. Oops, sorry, those are dead. If you camp out at a Google, oops, those never mind. If you camp out, are there any Samsung stores? You see what I mean, though. You know,
I do.
a
I
Best
do.
Buy.
Yes. However, the stats that they've gathered from that sample are still accurate. It's the representation of the sample that is the critical point. And yes, if you're going to do something like that you extrapolate, then it's important that your base is representative. And if your base is not representative, then extrapolation is pointless.
Right, and I think it's very difficult to get a truly representative base.
Yes.
The jury of one's peers is one of, in my opinion, the weakest parts of our legal system.
Yeah.
It's
And
almost
that's why when I
nonsense.
look at medical stats, specifically if somebody puts out a kind of any kind of medical document out there, the first thing I do is I go and look at what the sample size is, because sample size and sample representation is very important.
Right.
And if someone is trying to argue for the efficacy of a particular treatment or the non-efficacy of a particular treatment, sample size is of critical importance to that. And if they're only doing it on number of people that's in the tens, then regardless of how representative that is, it's almost meaningless. You need to get into very big numbers for it to be truly representative and meaningful.
Right. And on the just a tag on the jury of one's peers comment, if I'm uh, dragged into court for a federal crime that might land me in jail for life, I want to choose the jury. Because if you want my peers, I can show you who my peers are. You can't. The lawyer can't. Certainly, the other lawyer can't. The other lawyer has no intention of seating a jury that's truly a jury of my peers. And so you have to, it. You can get different outcomes depending on what jury you get. And technically, these juries are like statistics. They're a sample size, but drawn in a certain way to get a certain outcome. They are heavily manipulated and have absolutely nothing to do with one's peers. And so that's what I fear with statistics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to poo-poo over the entire science of statistics, because a lot of people have done a lot of great work. When I look at statistics, I try to look at Pew as an example. There are others that kind of stand out that seem to be trying to do the right things to get data, but I think I mostly don't trust them. So that said, let's do a show on statistics.
Yay! Woohoo!
You see why I couldn't really do this justice myself. Because I am actually going to start leaning heavily on the statistics in this, but I also acknowledge that these statistics favor some of the things that I would like to see. So I may not be the most objective person looking at these statistics. And since you've read this article, you understand why that is. So I expect you to rise above your pettiness and give us some real commentary.
I thought my entire brand was built on pettiness, David. Isn't that why you have me on?
No, that's why I have Andrew on.
Oh, okay. I've spent far too many weeks, years, whatever, talking to him then, clearly.
Speaking of which, you've probably talked to Andrew more recently than I have. He's been pretty busy. I've been pretty busy. So,
yeah, we've all been pretty busy.
Shout out to
I've
Andrew.
got stuff going on too. Yeah.
Ohio man sentenced to 18 years for firebombing. That's not the article. That's the wrong.
Not the
That's
article.
the
No, you
wrong
got the wrong
article.
number.
Yeah. Give me just a second. I had. This is embarrassing.
It's on my screen.
I understand it's on your stream. You can go ahead and get started. I will go back in my stuff and hunt down my stats article. I see it now. I'm sorry. This is going to be a dramatic reading of the, I do this anyway. 72%. That was another short that I haven't gotten around to doing. 72% of evangelicals came to faith before adulthood. Study.
Now, do you have any difficulty believing that headline, David?
None whatsoever, but that's part of the problem.
Me too.
I don't have any difficulty believing it, and I don't challenge it at all. And so that's why I give the disclaimer that I wanted to go ahead and let people know, yeah, I have a real distrust of stats, and yes, I'm going to do a show, and partly because this study confirms what I already think. So surely we can hold each other in check here.
We shall see, because I'm going to put my hand up straight away and say I have no difficulty whatsoever in accepting this. Nothing about that headline rings alarm bells for me at all. I read that and went, yeah, fits.
Right. So we'll get into some commentary, but let's read through some of this, and by let's I mean mostly you.
Okay. English reading voice. That's why you got me on, is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Shall we just go past the cringy photograph then?
Well, okay, this is on video. People can watch the video. We don't have to describe it. But yeah, I mean, this looks like this triggers me.
Holding hands at youth group with somebody you secretly fancy, but you're not allowed to tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Just
those memories.
Where are the black kids here? So here's the thing.
There is that as well.
I went to
Shame
white
on
churches.
me for not pointing that out, David. I do apologize, but I should have pointed that out.
But then again, this is what I'm used to. I went to white churches, largely, and so I would be the one black guy in this picture. That was me for most of my church life. Okay, a new study. Go ahead. Actually, I'm going to read this one because it's short, and then I'm going to give way to you. A new study reveals that the overwhelming majority of self-identified evangelicals came to faith as children. And many don't remember the specific moment where they decided to embrace evangelical Christianity. I just want to remind you of the title of the audience. 72% of evangelicals came to faith before adulthood. The first paragraph zeroes in even more that the overwhelming majority of, and we're talking evangelicals here, so specifically not just Christians in general, evangelical Christians came to faith as children. And by children, they're not necessarily talking about older children. I just want to point that out. And so this article shows a youth group, and these kids are 17 and 18 years old in the picture. That doesn't actually fit with the statistics that we're about to read, though. I turn it over to you, sir.
What age were you, David? Can you remember?
7.
Yeah, similar to me. I think it was even younger for me, about 5. But yeah, single digits, very young. Mm-hmm. Too young to be able to even objectively question any of this stuff.
Right. Okay, look, too much commentary. I've got to stop myself. I'm editing myself. We're going to get through this article in 30 minutes. Less. You got to read, sir. This article is not going to read itself.
Okay, I'll carry on. You tell me to stop when I need to stop. Okay. A report with the link titled "The Spiritual Journey: How Evangelicals Come to Faith" examines the faith journeys and practices of evangelicals in the United States. The research, conducted by Grey Matter Research and Infinity Concepts and released last Tuesday, was based on responses received from 1,010 evangelical Protestants collected in early 2023. So collected a year ago, around about 1,000 people. I don't know why they said evangelical Protestants, so presumably not Catholics and not other types of Christian evangelicals. So there's a couple of things, bearing in mind what we've already been saying. 1,000, is that a good enough sample size? It's possibly good enough to give an indication, but maybe small enough that extrapolation could result in numbers that are out by a significant enough amount, but probably not majorly. So it could be out by what, 10%, as in 72 to 62 kind of region. But does that really change the story behind here? I think the other thing that I take a challenge with, there we go, commentary, is this thing about self-identified evangelicals. I'd like a little bit more explanation of what that actually means, whether there was a definition which they adhered to.
Well, I think the average Christian would not identify themselves as evangelical. So I think the people who identify themselves as evangelical won't get to know their fundies.
Okay.
Because no liberal Christian would identify as an evangelical. They just wouldn't. And so if this is truly how people identify themselves, then I believe that. Because
Okay.
they want
Right.
you to know that they're radical.
Okay. I just kind of wonder if there's a better term than evangelical, because there was a time in my life where I would have embraced being evangelical and being fundamentalist. And there was a time in my life where I would have embraced evangelical concepts, but not fundamentalist concepts. So I think certainly here in the European church, I think evangelical has enough woolliness around the edges that there is some region where people would self-identify as evangelical, but not American evangelical. But this does specifically say American evangelical, so it's probably very different to where you are.
Okay. All right.
Right, shall I carry on?
Yes.
The survey revealed that 72% of respondents came to faith before the age of 18, while the remaining 28% didn't start holding evangelical beliefs until they were adults. A plurality of those surveyed, 26%, first began embracing evangelical ideas between the ages of 5 and 9. So that's very young.
Yeah.
Followed by 24% who came to faith between 10 and 12. So that's pretty much half before puberty.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. And 17% first subscribed to evangelical beliefs between the ages of 13 and 17. So it tails off as they get older.
Right.
And 5% first identified as evangelical before they were 5. So that's a very small number.
Right. So it just, not losing this detail, the plurality, for those who are math challenged, means that, it's not just, we're not looking at two numbers, the majority, 51% versus 49%. We've got different group categories, maybe 3 or 4 categories. And so we're looking at the largest group in those categories. And so the plurality here, the largest of these numbers is, what's that age range again?
5 to 9.
5 and 9 years old. This tracks with my experience as an evangelical.
And if you add on the 5% that say before 5, you've got 30% while they are still in single digit ages.
Right.
Which tracks with my religious upbringing in missionary school.
Right. This is horrifying. This is absolutely horrifying. And it gives us insight into why Christians are so desperate, especially here in America, to get into public schools, into preschools even, with Bible and Bible classes and prayer and such in school during school hours, over the intercom. I've been, I uncover this stuff in shorts. There was a week or two, I think, where I went where probably 80% of my stories were this sort of thing. And I throw away half of the stories on this I see. I don't even talk about them. It's happening all over. This is not a Bible Belt thing. This is all over Belt thing. And they are more and more emboldened to make bigger and bigger moves. I have some stories bookmarked about this that I'll be getting to hopefully this week on that to share even more. But this is why they're doing it. Because they are most effective not at actually converting fully formed people who can think through issues. Their biggest success, their greatest success, is with what can only be described as little children.
Yeah.
That's where their
Once
success
you've got those
lies.
people trapped into that way of thinking, you've poisoned their adult experience. And that is why in the deconstruction groups that I'm in, where you've got people who have deconstructed their evangelicalism, there are many, many harmed people who have such sensitive trigger points for all sorts of things. You know, Christianity is hemorrhaging damaged people because of this.
Because of this. So I have another show planned on nuns that hopefully I can share with someone too. Religious nuns and how they're growing just all through Christendom all over the world. This is not just an American phenomenon, and that's worth talking about. But yeah, just there. Just think about it. Just continue to think about this and why some of the arguments for Christianity seem to be so infantile. Well, it's because the arguments for Christianity, the real Christian apologetics, is designed for kids. It's designed for people who have no experience with the world. It's designed for children under 13 years old. That's what it's designed for. The real evangelical wing of any Christian church is its children's Sunday school. That's the only place where you actually see church growth happening in evangelical churches. When you look at a church and you look at their roster and they brag about how many people they have in their members, just ask how many of those are under 13, under 7. Whenever you have an organization that is designed to only be efficient when targeting children with unformed brains, you have an organization that you should run, not walk away from. I have pontificated enough.
Okay, so let's go on to the adult bits then. So 15% of respondents first adopted an evangelical worldview between the ages of 18 and 29, while 6% reported the age range of 30 to 39 as when they first developed evangelical beliefs, and the remaining 6% came to faith at the age of 40 or older. So the pattern that I'm seeing here in these numbers is as people get older, as people get more and more life experience, as they gain more and more wisdom, the ability for evangelical Christianity to get them on side reduces.
Yeah.
So life experience of seeing the world, greater wisdom, etc., decreases the ability of evangelical Christianity to convert you to its claim of truthfulness. That is the headline here. That should tell you all that you need to know. You have to get them while critical thinking is in its infancy or not even begun. That is how you get them, because as soon as critical thinking gets into that person's brain as a secular individual, the false and bogus claims of Christianity fail to penetrate. That is the story here.
Yes. All I can add to that is that the greatest defeater of the best Christian apologetics is growing up.
Yeah.
So that's really that's really what you need.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And
if Look at the Trees really worked, then grown-up people who are wise and critical would get converted.
Yeah, and the fact is, Look at the Trees works in the opposite direction. They look at nature. They look at what they can see, what they can access, what they know, what they have learned, their life experiences. And at some point, it just stops making sense that this God that you're thinking of as this loving Our Father is the same God that ordered literally order it. We've been back and forthing this on the site, Skeptics and Seekers. You know where to go. skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com. Just log in your Discuss account, discuss away. Send me an email, skepticsandseekers@gmail.com. It's a commercial. I am contractually obligated to sneak one
I'm
in.
surprised you don't have that on a button by now. I thought you did.
What makes you think I don't? What do you think is tattooed to my underwear? So, there's a reason we call them shorts.
I'm going to go and have a rummage through your underwear drawer now.
Okay, yeah. So, look, this could be fun. So let's...
Right, so now we get on to some interesting details.
I really was in the middle of something very important that I interrupted myself. Do you remember what thought I was saying before I got there?
You were saying that we need to move on.
Okay. Let's move on.
This is going to be a car crash. When asked to identify the biggest single influence that caused them to become evangelicals, 28 cited their parents, Kelsey, followed by 16% who pointed to their church and 11% who said other family members. Less common factors listed as respondents. The says biggest single influence in deciding to become evangelical include reading the Bible for themselves, 10%, difficulties in life, 9%, their pastor, 7%, spouses and partners, 4%, other events, 4%, friends, 4%, other church leaders, 3%, a direct experience with God, 2%.
Okay.
That's how busy he is.
Yeah. So
books 1% and radio or television 1%.
So the
why is God not 100%? I think really.
So this is a criticism that I sometimes see on the board. It's just not true. No matter how many times I prove it not true, they just keep saying it because Christians are. It's like this broken record. They're here. They've got to say it. They can't think past it. And the thing they say is, you atheists don't have any actual real reasons to not believe in God. It's just all emotional stuff. You don't have any theological reasons. You don't have any intellectual reasons. You don't have, any reasons. And yet, statistically, evangelicals actually are the ones who don't have any, dare I say, real reasons to believe in God. They are the ones who believe because they were born into the household. This is what these stats tell you. They were born into the household or raised in a family or extended family where religion is important. That's what these stats tell you. And for the things that should be more substantive for faith, as low as 2% become evangelicals because of any of that shit. That's what these statistics say. Do you believe them? I do. It meets with my experience in the pastorate for the time that I was there. They didn't come to Jesus because I preached a great sermon. That's simply not why it happens.
What I would like to see about those stats that I've just read out is how those match against the age stats. Because I'm willing to bet that thing about parents is skewed towards the younger, whereas reading the Bible for themselves and difficulties of in life is skewed towards the older. But right. We don't know that from these two paragraphs. But that would be my suspicion and my expectation.
Yeah, we do. I think we do. Because 5-year-olds aren't coming to Jesus because they read the Bible. I mean, stop it. Stop it. They did not consider strongly the Kalam cosmological argument and decide, yeah, you know what, that sounds right. That's not what's happening. So I think these statistics are very well correlated. They come to Jesus because they're young and their brains are unformed, and because their parents strong-armed them into doing it and promised them double allowance if they go to church every week. That's why they're there. And then when they get old enough to notice girls.
Yeah. There's one of the interesting things is interesting being a very relative term. One of the Christian podcasts I listen to is called the Side B podcast. And it's adult stories of conversion. And I listen to that, and it's very intriguing and interesting, the commonality you hear in all of these adult converts. And many of them, it's a really, really high hit rate. I haven't gone and analyzed it, but the hit rate is really high. there's a love interest or they have a stressor in their life and they go find and seek help from their friends. And being America, lo and behold, there are Christians in their circle and they get all cuddly feelings from their Christian friends and they go to church and apparently magically all these problems disappeared because their focus was on something else. And so, yeah, problems and love interests seem to feature very highly in the stories of these adult converts.
Yes. Now, I am experiencing audio difficulties at this point, so I'll mention that to the audience because in the final draft of this, there's going to have to be some cutting and pasting because Logic just vomited up a hairball, and so it stopped. I had to restart it. I'm going to have to do some patchwork stuff. Hope it works. I might have to.
Do I need to re-say anything?
No, you're fine. But my audio that comes from Zoom sucks, and so we might have to at some point revert to my sucky audio that came from Zoom. So just making that note here. Here, 2%, and then what was the thing that was 1%? Or have I
1% books and
Yeah.
radio or television.
Right. All of the so Gary Habermas. And poor Gary. I mean, I love Gary.
He wrote that big fat book for 1%.
1%. Practically zero people are going to come to believe in the resurrection because of that book. It's always true. We've always known that, but that's just how it works. Statistics seem to be bearing that out. A majority of these surveyed, 57%, characterize their faith as number one in my life.
I haven't read the paragraph before that.
My bad. Hit me.
Shall I carry on then?
Yes. Crack on. Crack on, as the English say.
Right. Crack on. Make it so. Yeah. Church was cited as a significant influence that led to them to become evangelical by 44% of respondents. Other frequently cited significant influence include reading the Bible for themselves, 36%, pastors, 32%, parents, 23%, other family members, 21%, friends, 18, other church leaders, 16, life difficulties, there's that one again, 14, other events, 10, spouses or partners, 10, books, 8, radio, TV, 4, direct experience with God, 1, and something online, 1. So something online, blogs, podcasts, all those Christian podcasts that are out there. So it says led to become evangelical. So the thing that I don't like about this paragraph is it doesn't make the differentiation between did they become immediately Christian evangelical or did they become Christian then evangelical? And were these stats what got them to evangelical Christianity as an alternative to what other sort of Christianity? So that's what I don't like about that paragraph that I've just read. But what strikes me about it is the number that involve other people influencing what they believe. When you add up all the individual percentages that involve other people, it's very, very close to 90%.
Oh, so another thing that I'm curious about in this stat, the direct experience with God.
1%.
Is it that only 1% receive a direct experience from God, or they receive experiences, but those weren't the deciding factors? I don't know. I don't know how to read that. If God is only showing up to 1% of the people, then it makes me wonder what's so special about that 1%? So why does he show up to 1% as opposed to 0%? And if it works with him showing up to 1%, why not 10%? Why not 50%? Why not show up more? So you can't say that God doesn't work that way, because 1% of the evangelicals say, oh, yes, he does. And that's directly why I'm a Christian. So it kind of leaves that door open.
Yeah.
A majority of those surveyed, 57%, characterized their faith as number one in my life, while 40% described it as very important in their lives, and 2% saw it as even less important. The research compared the faith practices of respondents who classify their faith as the most important aspect of their lives to those of evangelicals who either view it as very important or less. Okay, here again, there might be some correlation. I'm not sure how to take this paragraph. So 57% characterize their evangelical faith as number one in their lives. And then another 40, what was that number again?
40% was the other one.
Another
Yeah.
40% said very important. So let's just say 97% of evangelicals say that their faith is number one or at least very important in their lives. That tracks for me.
Hmm.
But it also tracks that if you want your faith to be a lifelong, very important thing in your life, you have to get started early. That's again the benefit of getting them while they're babies. There used to be a saying, the Catholic Church, give me your child until they're 7, and I'll give you a Catholic for life. Obviously, not true for every individual, but it is true enough to be an axiom. It's not just fundamentalist evangelical Christianity that it works for. In fact, it works for all kinds of things, whether it's rooting for a sports team, liking a food or not liking a food. All kinds of our preferences are formed before we're old enough to understand that our preferences for life are being formed.
Hmm.
All right, take us out. Let's do one or two more of these. We're not going to make the whole article, but I think that we are getting the idea. So give us your best 2 or 3 paragraphs uh, that are the you know.
Okay, well, I'll carry on. I've got plenty of time.
Okay.
91% of respondents who put their faith at the center of their lives pray daily, compared to 76% of those who see their faith as less important. A significant majority, 71%, said that their faith was number one in their lives, study the Bible weekly, while less than half of those considered their faith less important. 46% said the same. So half of that 2% who said it was less important study their Bible once a week. But basically, Bible study and prayer is daily or every few days.
Yeah, I question this statistic. I really do, because once again, my interaction with fundamentalists online and my interaction with fundamentalists when I was a fundamentalist showed that they didn't really study their Bible. I don't know
No,
what they were doing.
I think there's built-in pressure to self-report this kind of level of praying and studying.
Right, and I think there's another kind of cheating for this statistic, which is that they think they uh, call going to church studying the Bible and praying.
Yeah.
So when they
No,
say,
they probably, yes,
yeah,
they probably count it. Oh, I prayed in church in the group prayer. That counts.
exactly. They prayed in church and they went to Bible class at church, and maybe they even go to a midweek Bible class. So they study their Bible, um, and that's it. Or if they've got a calendar with a verse of the day, that might count as reading your Bible. They do all. There are all sorts of ways to goose this statistic. It's also you can find this in statistics about generosity and giving to charities. Christians think that giving their tithe is the same as giving to charities and being generous. And
Yeah.
so, statistically, those numbers are useless.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Among responders who rate their faith as the most important aspect of their lives, 70% go to church weekly, 49% read the Bible daily, 39 study their faith in small groups weekly. On the other hand, just 54% of those in the other category go to church weekly. Only 24% read the Bible daily, and 26% participate in faith-related small groups weekly. So, yeah, evangelism needs you to mix with other like-minded people and stay in that bubble and revitalize each other. That's what happens when you bubble your opinions.
Yeah,
They just get reinforced within your social circle. Get out, meet other people.
right. Church is the biggest and most effective echo chamber there is.
Yeah.
Additionally, the survey asked respondents to elaborate on how they first decided to come to Christ. A plurality of those surveyed, 46%, said that they could remember a specific point in their lives when they decided to trust Christ. Said they could remember. 37% recall being raised as Christians and can identify the age at which they first accepted Christian beliefs for themselves, but did not mention a specific point when they decided to do so. The remaining 16% described the conversion experience as gradual with no specific decision taking place. Now, this here, once again, these numbers can vary within denomination. So, for
Yeah, I reckon
instance,
so.
if you are Pentecostal or any form of Pentecostal, one of the things, and Southern Baptists, by the way, are tend to be like this too, at least some of the branches of them. Um, Testimony is very important.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
it's something that's featured in services, and if you're going to be taken serious as a Christian in these faith groups, at some point you have to have a testimony, a
Mhm.
conversion testimony of how God fixed you in some way, or how He showed up to you, He appeared to you, you sat down and ate bacon with Jesus and Elvis. You've got to have a testimony, and I think that there is a high pressure on this testimony in the same way that with charismatic churches, there's a high pressure on people to speak in tongues. So they will manufacture a testimony to fit into the group, even if there was no specific testimony. So I think that these numbers are high when they show that these people had a specific turning point, a specific event. The largest denomination in America makes bank on their members having specific testimonial events. And so I would take that with
Yeah.
a grain of salt.
Yeah, certainly the tradition that I was indoctrinated into, there was high emphasis was put on your conversion moment, your conversion experience, tell your story.
Mhm. All right, over to you.
Right, you did that bit, didn't you? Among those who came to Christ as an adult, 57% of respondents remembered a specific decision point, while 26% experienced a gradual process of embracing their faith, and 17% were raised as Christians but returned to or re embraced their faith without a specific decision point. A plurality of evangelicals surveyed who came to faith during a childhood, 45%, were raised as Christians and did not recall a specific point when they made their decision, followed by 42% who could remember a specific decision point and 13% rather, who called it a gradual process. I'm intrigued by that one. I would have thought that the childhood ones would be much higher in terms of raised as Christians. So I'm wondering where those other ones are coming from.
Uh,
Maybe it's something to do with the social structures in the United States, or maybe they're denying that their non-evangelical parents were actually Christians.
yeah, well, okay, here's the thing. I don't think there's anything in this paragraph that says that they weren't all raised as Christians.
Yeah,
Uh,
it says a plurality of evangelical surveyed who came to faith during childhood, 45% were raised as Christians.
yes.
So it's saying of those who said they became Christians as children.
But if we continue this and did not recall a specific point when they made their decision, followed by 42% who could
Oh,
remember
you
a
think we need
specific.
to add those two numbers together?
Yes,
That's a
I
little
think
bit clumsily
yeah,
written.
I think that all of these are refer back
Oh,
to
right. Yeah. So yeah, I've read this wrong. It's talking about all those that were raised as were raised. Yeah, it's
yeah,
about those who were raised as Christians. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
I've read it wrong. Yeah.
just grammatically, the construction, you have to take all of these as raised as Christians, and if they meant something
Yes.
else, they should have written it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. My misunderstanding. Sorry, listeners.
Yeah, that's
British accent.
there is a some non-zero percentage of kids that become Christians who are not raised in Christian homes. This,
Yeah.
once again, is why churches put so much money. Often the
Mhm.
biggest programs they put money into, the most money they spend, is on vacation Bible schools and church camps,
Yeah.
because they can invite their non-Christian friends to a church camp.
Yeah.
They're fun. They're camps. They're summer camps,
Hmm.
but they have a heavy, heavy dose of, we got to baptize you. When I was a camp counselor and in the administration of a camp back in Alabama, they did evangelism and baptized kids in the what is it, 4 to 6 year old group, uh, or was it the fourth through sixth grade group? I can't remember. It was kids. It was young kids, and so much was the outcry that parents got so upset they actually had to stop doing that.
Really.
Yeah, they had to stop baptizing small children at camp. But make no mistake about it, they were doing it. They were doing it when I was there. Hell, I did it. Um, so this is why those programs are so vitally important, because when you do get people outside of the church converting, it's often those kids in those church camp programs and vacation Bible school programs. VBS is not for the church kids; it's for the church kids' friends. That's what VBS is for.
Yeah. We're right at the end here, actually, David. Reacting to the report, Infinity Concept CEO Mark Dreistat, probably pronounced that wrong, explained that our research revealed that the journey to Christ is varied, individualized, and usually influenced by a variety of factors. Is that what you got from what we've just been going through? He added, understanding these factors more fully may help in reaching others who have not yet completed this journey of faith. Dreistat contrasted the findings of the survey with the tendency of evangelicals and teachers to sometimes speak about salvation in ways that may seem any true believer must have a watershed moment in their lives.
So I think I've done most of my venting for this argument, which is just to reiterate, this is awful to me. This is, but it's stuff that we already knew, right? We already
Yeah.
knew this about the evangelical community, but it's still awful. Protect your children. I am on record. I think I may have said this on a podcast, if not last year, maybe the year before. But I'm on public record. I'm not going to change it. I'm going to double down. I think that it ought to be illegal to baptize children under a certain age, because what you are doing is basically uh, making children who are too young to sign a contract sign a contract. It's religious faith, not just religious faith. You can have faith in anything you want to, but when you're baptized into a church, that is actually uh, an activity of commitment, right? And religious commitment to the Christians, to the evangelicals pushing for this, is in fact more binding and stronger than a contract. And they're getting kids who are nowhere near competent legally to enter into a committed agreement of any kind of business or other nature. They can't do it. There are reasons they can't do it. There are certainly some special circumstances where age can be waived for getting married. For instance, what's the youngest a person can be when they get married? Um, there's some legal weirdness around that, but I would say that no one should be getting baptized who is too young to enter into an important contract. And if it's not an important contract, then evangelicals should just admit that it's meaningless. If it is an important contract, then they should be regulated.
Mhm. I agree. You've convinced me.
Okay, all right. Um, Look, this is gonna there's gonna be a lot of discussion about this. Uh, I'm gonna drop this on the board. I actually had an interesting interview this week. So by the time people hear this podcast, which will probably be in the next couple of days, as we record, there will already be another one on the board. Bickernix, Eric Bickernix. He is the author of a couple of sci-fi fantasy
Ooh,
UFO books. We had
nice.
a very, very interesting conversation, but I really hope that when this comes out as a rare video short, that there's some conversation around here. And once again, Matt occasionally loses his mind and jumps into the discussions. It's not recommended.
Yeah, that website that you use, they've changed some things, and it's really disincentivized me of using their platform. It's got nothing to do with skeptics and seekers. It's the platform. I
Discuss.
apologize.
Yeah, no, that's look, it's kind of a dumpster fire, but it's home. What am I gonna do?
It's warm. You're not cold.
No, I can cook a hot meal. No. Let's do it. Let's do this. This is short. This is a follow-up article. Yeah, we're going to squeeze in a twofer here.
I've got another one for you we can do later as well if you want to stop recording and later after this and do another one.
Yes,
I would love it.
Look, let's pack it in as much as we can, because these might be the only shorts I do this week because of reasons. So you guys remember Alistair Begg? We talked about him about a week ago. He's 70 years old, and last September he was on a podcast. He made some statements, but I don't know. I guess the fundies were backed up in their podcast listening, and so by the time they got around to it and got their outrage, it was nil. And so the radio station, Alistair Begg, he answered a call on a radio station. He's been doing this, doing a radio show for like 18 years at this station. Of course, when you're 70 years old, you've been doing a lot of stuff for 18 years. You're getting on up there. But he's one of those guys who's been around for a very, very long time doing what he does. He is a bona fide card carrying fundy nut job. However, he got his fundy nut job card pulled because of something he said on the radio. A lady called in, probably a little old lady. That's how this problem starts, always does. She calls in and is like, my grandson is getting married to a guy. What am I supposed to do? Should I go to the wedding or should I hold firm? And so Alistair goes through this kind of a interview process, this vetting process on the radio show with her, and he's like, have you made it clear that you are firmly against his life choices, and that in no way you approve of his lifestyle, and that you hate him and God hates fags? Basically that sort of thing. Have you made it clear to him? And she says, yes, I have. And he says, well, in that case, it's okay to go to the wedding. In fact, you should bring a gift. This is like some big infatuation story.
Yeah, shameful.
You should even bring a gift, because what this is going to do, those people, they think we're all judgmental and unloving. You're going to knock their socks off. They're going to be so shocked that we did a loving act, which, by the way, I found so funny that even they understand that they are not known for loving. People will be shocked that we did something loving. He's right. So he gave that advice that yes, you can go and to your grandson's wedding as long as you are not affirming it and you make it clear. Well, the Fundy community lost their shit. They lost their ever loving shit. And once they started getting active online, took a few months, the radio station canceled Alistair Begg. Much of the Fundy community has canceled Alistair Begg. Christian cancel culture is alive and well.
It beggars belief that people who are so anti-canceling can cancel this kind of thing.
No group
beggars belief, I tell you.
No group of people do more canceling than fundamentalist Christians. They are canceling machines.
And take a look at this here on the previous page that we've been going through. Here we go. Where's it gone? Oh, it's gone. Oh no. Oh, the advert is gone. There was an advert here on the previous page we were looking at. Oh, there we go. Here we go. A compassionate response to Alistair Begg's bad advice. Not only have they cancelled him, they've called their cancelling compassionate.
Of course.
Fucking hell.
Of course. They're very compassionate to the people who might be deceived and dragged to hell by him.
Pieces of shit, they really are.
I mean, my God. So here we are. We can thank Matt for this bit of follow-up because I did not see it. So thank you. This article comes from Church Leaders. I will have to put this in my queue where I find Christian articles. Alistair Begg withdraws from John MacArthur's Shepherd Conference.
They've even worded it like he voluntarily stood down.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like he had a choice.
Like he's not a fuck.
That's
anymore.
how compassionate they are. We'll even let you choose to stand down.
You can be fired or you can just leave. And so let me finish the title though. Alistair Begg withdraws from John MacArthur Shepherd Conference following LGBTQ plus wedding remarks. I have been saying for some time that the church is breaking its back over the LGBTQ issue. LGBTQ people aren't doing anything except existing. Yep. But the church is actively destroying itself over this issue, and they just keep doing it. It just keeps getting worse. It's awesome.
It's fabulous to see. I might even wear a dress just to help it along.
Maybe you should just wear one anyway. I mean,
yep. Let's go for it. Next video, folks. Have a surprise. There may even be sequence involved.
That would be the after hours show, folks, and there will be.
That'll be 9 o'clock.
No, we're not doing a 9 o'clock service here, folks. It's an inside reference. It might show up on a short one day. Well-known pastor, speaker, and author Alistair Begg won't be speaking at John MacArthur's annual Shepherds Conference this year due to his controversial remarks about Christians attending LGBTQ weddings. During his sermon on Sunday, January 28th, Begg told his organization at Parkside Church in Cleveland that he stands behind the course. He stands behind the counsel he gave a grandmother whom he encouraged not only to attend her grandchild's transgender wedding, but also to bring a gift. Would you please spare me from this reading, Matt? Spare the audience.
Counsel to the grandmother became public after he spoke about it in an interview he gave for his book, The Christian Manifesto, this past September. The interview just recently surfaced on social media, resulting in widespread criticism.
Okay, just stop. I noticed this in the first article that I did. I just made brief mention of it. I'm glad I have a chance to ask you this. Manifesto, is that just a normal word that's tossed
Yeah,
around in your neck of the woods? Because
yes, it is.
we can't hear manifesto without thinking of the Unabomber manifesto.
Yeah, I again, manifesto is normally associated with political parties. So when it comes to voting, which we're doing this year, sorry, for a new government here in the UK, every political party will publish online its manifesto, which is the statement of what it stands for and what it hopes to achieve if we elect it. So when I see a title like the Christian Manifesto, I expect to see something that's basically a glorified with extra verbs Christian statement of faith.
Yeah, I expect to see something like Mein Kampf. So, that's just that's just me, I suppose. I can't think of a single thing with manifesto attached to it that ended well. But
When religion is concerned, or extremism of any form concerned, yeah. But hopefully our political parties don't have things like blowing up LGBT residences.
you haven't been watching American politics, have you? So,
It does bother me, and I'm very thankful that at this present moment it's not quite that bad here, but some elements of the UK do look that way.
yeah. Let me pick up these next couple here because they're short. Surely I won't stumble over such short paragraphs. While preaching a sermon, Begg explained that his counsel to the grandmother was specific to that particular situation. If I was on the receiving end of another question about another situation from another person at another time, I may answer absolutely differently, Begg said. But Begg was very clear that he doesn't believe the advice he gave was sinful and said that there is no reason for him to repent. I'm not ready to repent over this. I don't have to, he said. Okay. Um, Look, I would agree with him here. I think his advice,
Yeah,
even from a fundy, well, okay.
yeah.
Let me back up. If this was me back in the day, would I have given this advice? I think I would have. And I was pretty fundy, but I think I would have given this advice. First of all, the issue of homosexuality wasn't that big of a deal back in the day. It kind of blew up as an issue in fairly recent times. Um, and I don't think I would have seen a problem with, telling someone to go to a wedding of your grandkid and bring a gift. Because here's the thing, and the thing that I pointed out, I think I pointed this out in the first show. If you want to talk about unbiblical weddings, all weddings that have a divorced party are unbiblical weddings. If that divorce
Mm.
wasn't directly for unfaithfulness, and if you were the one unfaithful, you can't get married again anyway. So I would say 90% of all weddings that are supported by churches are quote unquote unbiblical. So this is not a judgment of a person's life situation. Um, a person who is coming to Jesus and, they realize that they have, screwed up their lives with bad marriages, and they are now in Christ and they get married, you just think, well, okay, their Christianity now washes that clean. It's okay. Their baptism re-virginized them in a kind of a way. But if a person is a Christian and they go through that, maybe they're a young Christian and they've since repented of their sins, well, I guess they could continue just getting re-virginized so that they can go through a marriage even after having, unbiblical divorces, and Christians go to those weddings. If those, however, are sinful wedding situations, as Jesus would have outlined them, then I don't see any reason why you couldn't go to a gay wedding. The only reason it matters is because it's the hot button issue of the day for fundy Christians. That's it. Theologically, it's no different than any other quote unquote unbiblical wedding.
Yeah, I think that point needs to be made because these are people who would go to a divorcee's wedding. It's the big thing. But to go back to your question, I was thinking about it myself. In my fundy days, how would I have felt about going to a same-sex wedding? I never did, so I never had the opportunity to actually answer for that for myself. I know I would have been uncomfortable. I it's difficult for me now to look back and think of what were the circumstances that would differentiate between me going and not going. It's really hard. It was a long time ago, but yeah, it would have been a problem for me. I'll settle for that.
Well, let's just lay my cards out on the table. A same-sex wedding between two men would have yucked me out. You may kiss the bride. I'm sorry, that's going to put me off the cake.
Yeah,
Same-sex kiss between two women, bring it on.
men are weird.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, lots of guys wouldn't get off on gay porn with two men. Not one of them have a single objection to lesbian porn. Not one.
I think you only need to say the phrase and it does its job. They don't even need to get to the pictures.
So, according to religious news, you know what?
Truth?
Yeah, oh no, quite true. In fact, I give up. This paragraph is too long. Take it, take us out.
Shall I take it away?
Yeah, take
We're
it.
nearly the end.
Yeah. Finish us off.
According to Religion News Service reporter, well, why do you guys have such complicated surnames? What's wrong with Taylor? News Service reporter Bob Smetana. Begg will be removed as one of the speakers from MacArthur's annual Shepherds Conference. The decision came after Begg and MacArthur spoke following Begg's controversial LGBTQ plus wedding comments. The two mutually decided that it was best that Begg withdraw so as not to create an unnecessary distraction. Nevertheless, no announcement has been made. Begg was still listed as one of the speakers Thursday morning, February the 1st, but was deleted from the line-out later in the day. Other scheduled speakers at this year's Shepherds Conference include John MacArthur, John Piper, H.B. Charles Jr., Steve Lawson, Phil Johnson, and Bob Kauflin.
Yeah, you got some horsemen of the apocalypse here. Look, I do a lot of...
These are people who would have physically stopped Jesus from going to speak to the woman at the well.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. Hell, they would have stoned him in the name of Jesus. So, yeah, J Mac. My audience knows that I love me some J Mac. Clint and I have done a lot of J Mac. John Piper, he's my favorite. I like John Piper. I like his style. He's a special kind of crazy, but he's a good speaker, and I genuinely enjoy listening to John Piper's sermons. Call me nuts.
I always knew you were an odd one.
I liked John Piper when I was a Christian, so he was he's a good one. But this is the list of people that McAllister is associated with. He goes to this conference every year. I've seen some of their conferences. I think I may have done even a spot or two from conferences past. These are the names that you would associate with McAllister. These people are also canceling McAllister because he's just not funny enough for them. And I noticed that the first paragraph that you read here toward the end put a lie to the headline. So the place where you interrupted yourself in the headline, no, you interrupted me. I was reading the headline, but you couldn't help yourself. Withdraws from MacArthur's Shepherd Conference. There was no withdrawing here. Begg's removal. That's what this paragraph more honestly says as one of the speakers.
Yeah.
He was removed. And when they say they mutually agreed to kind of part the ways, what that means is they were pressuring Begg to repent and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. Begg, Alistair Begg, one of the horsemen of the fundamentalist apocalypse, has been canceled and chewed up by the others.
Yeah.
This is your Christianity, folks. This also contractually obligated to say this every show. This is boots on the ground, butts in the pews, Christianity. This is what it looks like.
And the two-facedness of it is what gets me. Forgive me for getting a little bit political in this, David, but the slightest infraction. I mean, this is not even a serious infraction against evangelical Christianity, really. This guy is intentionally giving advice to help foster a loving relationship between family members. That is what he's doing here. And because he gave the wrong headline advice, screw the relationship, get away from me. And yet, these are the very same people who, having rejected one person for a tiny infraction, are prepared to forgive multiple, even worse infractions of a bastard who they want to put back into the White House.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, right. So, um,
This is the hive of scum that is evangelical Christianity.
and for
And that's
those,
me being nice about it. And it is going to devastate Christianity. It's going to implode Christianity. And this is why people are leaving and leaving and leaving.
do you remember some conversations? I don't know if I had them out loud or just on the board, or if I had them on a show with you or some other people, but the question recently surfaced, um, something to do with I'm sorry, pardon my brain fart here. Something to do with uh, essentials of the Christian faith. What is it? What
Mm-hmm.
does it take to be an actual Christian, and at what point do you leave the Christian faith? And the Christians that I'm in conversation with on the board, are very insistent that there are certain essentials and there are things that are outside of the essentials that are just in-house disagreements, but would not otherwise make you not a Christian. And my response to that was, it's a distinction without a difference. If I mean, you can say in your mind that that person is still a Christian, but if you have treated them in a way that says they're not a Christian, they're not really a Christian. If you have disfellowshipped them, if you have canceled them, then what you're saying is they're not a Christian. And so, just verbally giving assent to, oh, yeah, well, in some spiritual sense, they may still be in the family of God, but we're going to split our church so as not to have anything to do with those people.
Yeah.
We're going to demand that those people repent, and when they don't repent, we're going to disfellowship them. Oh, but they're still Christians, right? It's meaningless.
Yeah.
And what has happened in McAllister's community is they've taken an issue that almost everyone that will talk about this on the board will say is a secondary issue, is not a real issue, and yet it is the thing that has gotten him disfellowshipped. If it is not a real issue that defines Christianity, then you have no right to do that. So I don't recognize this distinction, this false distinction between essential issues and non-essential issues. Because when you act like this, it's all essential.
Yeah.
All right. Look, let's do it. Let's do a threefer. Let's do it's not a menage a trois of articles, but it is in my mind. You had a third article that you wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, let's see how awesome my Google skills are. Just 1 second. Um, this is right up your alleyway. Trust me, David.
Okay. When you find it, I know you're going to put it on your screen, but if you just send a link through, let's see if we can do it through chat. If you would just drop that link in chat, I can open it up and embiggen it on a different screen so that I can actually read along.
Yeah. Sure. And that's that. Where's me Chatteridge? Where's me Chatteridge, David? Oh, yeah, there we go. Chat, it's all the way over there. Bing, can you see that all right?
I can. I have clicked and it has opened, and like magic, love it when technology works, except when it didn't work earlier in this show. Um, all right, let's see. I know you just sent it to me. I just opened it, and I just have to find it. What the hell did I do with it? All right. Spring Harvest Youth Preaching Prize. 2023 winners announced. Is this?
Yeah, they've
is this
just
on?
announced the 2024 one as well. Let me give
Youth
you
youth
another name.
preaching. Youth preaching.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of experience
A
in that one,
little
haven't
bit.
you?
Youth preaching. I'm just saying. Maybe don't let people, quote unquote, preach who have the life experience of a mosquito. It's just ridiculous, because there is a there's actually a warning. I want to say it's in the book of James, but it maybe in a different place. Maybe it was to Timothy, actually, where Paul, I think it's Paul, who said basically teachers will be held even more accountable, for what they get wrong. It's more dangerous for teachers to get wrong. You're putting anywhere from 4 years old and up in the pulpit to preach. Youth preaching is utterly absurd within a Christian theological framework.
Yeah, so here we are. So the competition is 11 to 16-year-olds. So last year's winner, so they had two winners for different parts of the UK, a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, both girls, and then the runner-up was a 12-year-old man. So the women beat the man. Don't know if that's biblical.
I'm sorry. They were girls.
Girls, sorry, the girls beat the boy. Yes.
Okay, so
girl winners. I'm assuming that Esther and Grace are girls' names. I mean,
yeah.
And then the 2024 competition has been announced.
Yeah,
and they're advertising, encouraging for participants.
There are a lot of people that would get stuck on the girls in the preaching contest at all. So there are a lot of Christians that are.
Yeah, but they're just children, so it doesn't really.
No, it does. Those children have been canceled for life by certain portions of the church. I promise.
Their daddies wrote the sermons.
Okay, did you want to read through some of this?
It's just the announcement of the competition. I don't know if it's something that you really want me to read through, but I can do if you want.
Well,
let's read it. Let's read it. So
I'm curious. As you say, I do have a little bit of history with child preaching.
You have some investment in this subject. Last year, we discovered some amazing young communicators when we ran the Youth Preaching Prize for the first time. Grace Keir, Esther Overton, and Thomas Ngome impressed the judges and the guests at Spring Harvest with their talks on why there is hope. We love investing in young people and are pleased to announce that we will be running the competition again in association with Premier Unbelievable. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Anyone who is coming to Spring Harvest this year and is aged 11 to 18, so they've increased the upper age limit by 2 years. It was 11 to 16 last year. 11 to 18 can apply. We are seeking to encourage young people from a broad range of lived experiences to apply, particularly if they haven't had the opportunity to speak publicly before.
I'm sorry, what is a broad range of lived experiences for a 12-year-old? What does that even mean?
They had to cross the road to go to school.
I don't understand. And so the winning sermon was on why we should have hope or something.
Why there is hope.
Why there's hope.
I think they were probably given that as a topic, and so they each preached on the same topic.
Right.
I suspect. That's how I understand the reading that I've just made.
That's how some of these competitions work. And so what are they judging? Are they judging the content? Are they just judging the homiletics?
Well, let's see if there's any clues in that. It's simple. Prepare a short talk to fit the brief, film it on a phone, and send it to us by Sunday, the 3rd of March. The judging panel will include Dr. Amy Orr Ewing, Reverend Chris Rogers and Des Brown. Amy's advice is to remember it's not a filmmaking test. We want to see the way you communicate as well as your content. Don't forget to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Use an illustration and quote from the Bible.
Okay, yeah, this is just homiletics.
So let's get down. What to do next? Prepare and film your talk on this brief. Title, Rise Up. Ephesians 4:1 in the Message says, I want you to walk, better yet run, on the road God has called you to travel. In other translations of the Bible, this is described as living a life worthy of the calling you have received. What does this mean to you? It could help to look at the linked passages, Acts 1:1-14, where Jesus promises the Holy Spirit.
No, stop it. Okay. You're gonna also give them the passages that they will use because you know that they don't know their fucking Bible. So you're gonna tell them where to look for some good stuff. And what does that passage that you just alluded to? What does that mean to a 12-year-old exactly? How on earth can anything that they say about this be relevant to anyone in real life? This is just I've done many of these competitions. I know how to win them.
There's a video here of last year's winner if you really want to.
Stop. Stop it. All right. The link that you sent me doesn't have all of that. So I don't.
Yeah, the second link I gave you, it's got the link further down.
Oh, you sent me another link. Okay. I've been looking at a false link here. Hang on.
Yep.
Yeah. I won't go to it, but yeah, no, we got to watch this. Can we watch it?
Let me big it up. We've got to get past the advert. Just excuse me. Sorry, I don't pay for YouTube for a reason.
Yeah, I pay for an ad blocker.
9 minutes. Can we manage 9 minutes?
Look, it will be 9 of the best minutes I spend all day.
Right. Yeah, but you're going to interrupt me. This is going to be a 9-hour with interruptions.
No, I won't. I promise I'm not going to say a word. I have no control of the video, people. It is not playing on my computer. I'm not going to open the link. So this is all Matt. One of the problems you have when you bring on a guest who is a strong moderator of their own podcast, they will end up moderating you out of your podcast. So
right, okay. Right, I'm going to maximize this, hopefully, for the benefit of everybody. Right,
moderate me, brother. Let's do it.
9 minutes of awesomeness is incoming.
But not the audio.
We've got intro. We have intro.
We don't have audio.
Do you not?
No. So
you have no audio?
No.
Okay. Do I?
I'll tell you what to do. Step out of it. Stop
sharing?
No.
Stop sharing. Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
sharing. That's good. That's fine. Go into the share screen, and in that menu at the bottom left, it says share audio. Click that checkbox.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Now, where was I? That one. Let's try again. Okay,
winner of Spring Harvest Preacher competition. She's sharing on why there is hope back at Spring Harvest 2023.
So this evening we're looking at the question, why is there hope? So at my school there is a lesson once a fortnight called How to Thrive, which is like a form of PSHCE, but it focuses on mental health and coping strategies for stress and so on. But most people at school call it the sleeping lesson. Because compared to normal GCSE subjects, it feels like a bit of a waste of time. And my teacher's favourite thing to do is positive thinking, and thinking it solves all problems like stress and worry. But when I talk to my friends, I'm not sure it's really helping. We are a struggling generation. I know there are people in that classroom whose life is hard. I know there are people in this room whose life is hard. Maybe they have a health condition or a mental health illness. Maybe they struggle financially or have a difficult home or a broken family. I'm not sure breathing exercises are going to cut it. And my generation is also a passionate one. We want something to give our lives for, to give our lives to. We are passionate about climate and environment and politics and mental health and wars, and we want to see justice. Our hearts ache with the injustices, and we feel burdened by the world's problems. It's so easy to be weighed down by these things. Positive thinking is really just wishing that there are better times to come. And Mr. Russell does his best, but quite frankly, I'm not sure that's what this generation needs. What we need is hope, and one that can really shape our lives. And we know this is found in Jesus. So you want to turn your Bible to 1 Peter 1 verse 3-4. In it says, "All praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is by his great mercy that we have been born again, because God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. Now we live with great expectation, and we have a priceless inheritance, an inheritance that is kept in heaven for you, pure and undefiled, beyond reach of change and decay." The great news for this generation is that there's more. There is more to life. First of all, we have a priceless inheritance. Because Jesus rose from the dead, and because of his mercy and grace, through his sacrifice, we get a relationship with God, and one day we'll be in heaven and all pain and suffering will end. I don't know what gets you through the day, but to be honest, sometimes I find that what gets you through a morning of lessons is the prospect of lunch. I have a packed lunch at school, and the anticipation of those salt and vinegar crisps sustains me and makes me want to keep going. I know they're waiting for me, and I can't wait to eat them. It may sound silly, but those little rewards make it possible to persevere. It's like that with the prospect of heaven. We have this hope of glory to sustain us. And
Sorry, we're nearly halfway through, but she just compares heaven to a packet of crisps.
Look, I just want the
I get the comedy, but
I want the record to show that I am not the one who caused this stoppage, people. For those of you who were taking odds and betting on me to be
I
the
thought
one,
you were going to have altered this by now. I've got some other questions I want to ask you, but heaven and crisps, that's a new one on me. I don't think I ever got that comparison ever in any of the sermons I sat through.
right?
So hands up to ingenuity.
I'm trying not to critique this on the basis of pure homiletics, although that's mostly what we're looking at here.
Yeah, it's not really a lot being said, really, is there?
Right. But, I don't want to criticize kids for doing kids things and doing their best and doing well. She's doing fine. But, I've seen lots of these types of competitions and heard lots of these types of sermons. This would not have won most of the competitions that I was involved in. So
Okay.
it's just interesting, and I don't know, it could just be that where I come from in my neck of the woods, child preaching is a thing, and it's not particularly rare, and they learn how to do it early. And so they do it early and better sometimes than many adults, but we get the preachers we get because we start the training really, really young. And so she is actually starting late in the game. As far
Do
as
you
that
look
goes.
for animation, as in physical animation?
I don't care much about physical animation. Sometimes you can make a better, stronger point if you are very still and you simply raise a hand in a gesture once for a point. That can be very powerful. If you're kind of floating around and jumping around and shifting as she's doing from one foot to another and kind of that comes across as nervous.
Yeah.
And so I would actually deduct.
I mean, this is in a big audience that she's, it's obviously not clear from the video. Spring Harvest, for context that people might not be familiar with, is an annual event here in the UK, usually at Easter or weeks surrounding Easter, where thousands of Christians will converge onto a holiday campsite. And there'll be a massive tent which will take several thousand people, and they'll have daily worship and lectures and evening sermons like this in front of several thousand for the period of the week. It's coming together of Christians all the way around the country.
It's clearly
So
a
this
big
girl
stage.
is probably preaching in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, it's a big stage. No doubt about that. But I prefer to see people who are in control of their body. And so if you're going to move, it needs to be intentional.
Right.
Not because you've got a nervous tick. And you're just kind of shifting around because it's a big stage and you don't know what to do with your feet or your hands. So that said, I don't think she's made any huge gaffes per se, but I just think that this represents I think a lot of people, by the way, who are familiar with child preaching in the States would make the exact same observations that I'm making. So I'm not trying to be mean to her. I'm speaking as if I were a judge, judging this. We'll talk about her content later, but I find it empty. It's a thing that an adult Christian might say amen to because this is what they've been hearing all their lives. But there's nothing new or remotely interesting. What we need is hope. Well, that's great. You don't have to be a Christian to say something like that. Our generation are very passionate. Well, you know what? Every generation of youth is very passionate. Going back from the beginning of time, that marks what young people are. And to the extent that we can hang on to those passions and focus them defines how we live out our adulthood. But she says it as if this is a new thing. Our generation, we're special. We're particularly passionate. Not special, but that's because you lack life experience and you don't understand that. And you say, well, the answer is Jesus. Okay, that's great. Nice bumper sticker. Did you get that label off of the box of crisps that you were eating? It's just a declaration. What we need is Jesus. And that comes across as profound in a Christian audience because somebody said it from a big stage. There's zero here information-wise that makes me raise my eyebrows and say, oh, that's interesting. So let's see if she gets to something like that.
Yeah. And before we get to that, you were talking about presentation, etc. There's a couple of clarifications I'd like to ask you. And this is going to sound terribly sexist, and audience, please forgive me, this is not the intention. But I notice she's female, she's wearing trousers, she's wearing long trousers, and she's wearing long sleeves. So there's minimal opportunity for any kind of rogue flesh. Would you have taken that kind of attention to your appearance as well? Would you have had long trousers over your shoes, a shirt, and then a jacket covering down to your wrists?
Well, I'd have been wearing a suit. So
you would have,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I grew up in suit culture. So there's in church, you got suit culture and you got shorts culture. We were very much anti-shorts culture, so we would have, we'd have been wearing suits. I've been wearing suits since I was tiny. I'm sure I was wearing it as a baby. So, I think the more interesting thing about this though is that she is wearing trousers. She's not wearing a long dress. And so this, once again, kind of theological, it may speak to the theological circles. So this is a theological circle.
Shows how liberal and unchristian the UK is.
Right.
Terrible, isn't it?
Right. You not only have women preachers, but you have women who are wearing essentially men's clothes. This simply would not be allowed in many places. And let me be clear, there are preaching competitions for women in evangelical churches. All right, that's a thing. But those women are not preaching in front of men. They're preaching in front of other women, and they're not training to be preachers in the pulpit. They're training to be like teachers of women's Bible classes and women's retreats and things like that. My mother, in fact, was a great speaker, but we went to a church where women couldn't actually teach and so forth. So she visited me at one of my liberal churches that I was at, and I had invited her to speak to the class. And so she agreed to do it, and it was a mixed class of men and women. So anyway, I'm just bringing that up. I don't want to get too theological in the weeds, but there are some, just some kind of theological question marks that come up in her very appearance. But for the record, I think those distinctions are stupid, and I am glad that this church, no matter how liberal and hell-bound they are, I'm glad that they are doing this.
Let's carry on. Hell is a bag of crisps. I mean, sorry, heaven is a bag of crisps.
Well, hell is also a bag of crisps. It's just a bag of stale crisps.
That would be hell. Let's go.
And the anticipation that it will be so much better than anything else. In fact, the Bible says that heaven will exceed our best moments on this earth. And they can be pretty great.
Where does it say it?
God, our future is guaranteed
I'm sorry.
to be better than our...
Where does the Bible say that? Someone hit me up. You know where to go. I'm not going to say it again. But where, in fact, does the Bible say that? You get a lot of kind of platitudes like that from preachers and internet apologists who just assume that the Bible says something that they've been taught for a long time. You'd be surprised at how many quotes from Jesus that you hear that he never said. God helps those who help themselves. Not a single place can that be found. Heaven is a place that exceeds our wildest expectations, our best moments here on earth. Great. The Bible gives us practically no descriptions of heaven. So here, if I were being picky, and I would be because I'd be a judge, mark points off for this, because this is an unsourced platitude that you have just ascribed to the Bible, which doesn't say it. And so if you're going to say, according to the Bible, you'd better come out with something that the Bible actually says.
Our past. And it's kept for you pure and undefiled. In a world of brokenness and change, in a world of uncertainty and disorientation, your inheritance is out of reach of these things. Soon you'll be healed. Soon you'll have every tear wiped from your eye. Soon you'll be in paradise. And secondly, this means we live now in great expectation. The kingdom of God is here now, and as Christians, we are part of it. We can live expectantly that God is right now working to make things new. What might God want you to do for him today? His resurrection power is in us, and nothing is impossible for him.
We just want to take a quick break to talk to you about Spring Harvest. If you're enjoying this podcast, you should definitely join us at Minehead or Skegness this Easter. It's 5 days full of inspiring talks, heartfelt worship, and family fun. On top of an amazing programme of sessions, it's hosted at Butlins. At more, including dates and prices at springharvest.org.
I'm not sure if you've ever felt like this, but sometimes when I'm at school, I would do a lot to get out of a lesson. And I feel this urge the most during French lessons. Sometimes I'd rather be anywhere else. But sometimes there is breakthrough. When my form tutor begins handing out slips of paper, my heart leaps. You see, at my school we have this thing called mentor meetings, where the tutor takes us out of the lesson individually and speaks to us one-on-one about how we're getting on at school and mental health and stuff like that. And you get the piece of paper that gets you out of a lesson. So when Mr. Mulholland starts walking towards me with a slip of paper, I get this sense of freedom, this sense of joy. Yes, right now he's breaking in. He's taking me out of the mundane. I know I'm going to miss a whole 20 minutes of French, and I am overjoyed. I want to encourage you today that God doesn't want you to live in despair. He doesn't want you to give into despair. He has called you to something greater.
What does it mean to give in to despair? It's one of those word phrases that gets thrown about, but what does it actually mean from Christianese?
I was actually going to ask you to stop at that point as well, but for a slightly different reason. So first of all, what does it mean to give into despair? But what does it mean to her? So if you look at that, the example that she gave as a juxtaposition here, it's that she gets bored in French class, and she is relieved when someone gets her out. That is, in her life experiences, the best example she can come up with for despair, and how God is going to save you from despair. This is why children shouldn't be preachers. They have nothing of relevance to actually say by way of life experience. And again, this is not an insult of children. Children are children. They should be allowed to be children. But she's trying to speak into an audience of people who have actual life experience, who have actual despair. And I would just simply be either distracted or insulted if I were one of those people with despair, having it compared to getting out of 20 minutes of French.
Yeah.
All right, take it away. We're almost done. That probably is going to take me out of the rest of this talk, to be honest with you. But let's see if she can redeem it.
Do you need a slip of paper to get you out of the next 2 minutes? Is that what it is? Come on, God, you can do it. You can give David that very real experience of being taken out of his current despair. You can do it. Give him that experience. Just imagine what he will be. And he doesn't need to learn how to preach anymore. He can still do it.
Considering our audience, would you please refrain from asking God to take David out?
Still got my gallbladder. Just saying, still got it.
Okay, well, we were only beseeching Satan, but you're beseeching the bigger Satan, okay? I have reason to fear.
Okay. Let's move on.
He wants you to live with what Peter calls great expectation. The NIV calls it living hope. You're invited to live in great joy, a spirit of great expectation. Right now, he's at work in the world to bring people to know him. This is not positive thinking. This is kingdom living. We are living for the day that all things will be made new. And right now, God is doing this all over the world. Jesus rose from the dead. And right now, he is showing himself to people, breaking into their darkness. He is broken into our darkness, and he wants you to be alive with great expectation of how he will use you in the lives of those around you. There is hope for this generation, and his name is Jesus. And that same hope is for you. We have a priceless inheritance that no crisis we face in this world can damage. And we can live with this great expectation, knowing that God is longing to break into people's lives with this joy. This is the hope of the gospel, and it's for me, and it's for you. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode.
And there we go, David.
Yeah.
Consider yourself wowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how that final platitude helps somebody who's living in abject poverty.
It was not a particularly inspiring ending, I don't remember how it started, and all of the points seemed like oatmeal in between. Visually, she was swinging like a pendulum as she rocked from one side to the other. I found it visually distracting, and if I were her coach, I would have coached that out of her in the first 30 seconds of seeing it. Vocally, just tonally. Once again, understand I'm speaking like a judge. Judges have tough jobs. Tonally, it was all of the same tone, very monotonous in the tone. And so there wasn't much to differentiate her points that she wanted to emphasize and punctuate. It all sounded like the last thing. Her line about crisps sounded the same as Jesus is the answer. So that there's nothing to differentiate that. And then finally, just on the content critique, there are 0 things in the speech that 4-year-old and 5-year-old preachers don't include in their speeches when they make them. And if your preaching is going to be of relevance to anybody in that room, you have to leave them with something, some kind of takeaway, some different twist, something that is your own signature, something that they didn't expect. And there was nothing of that in that sermon. Again, a fairly typical child sermon, and it should be proof for why we shouldn't be doing that to our children.
I can't add to that, David. Thank you for your input.
I do appreciate you bringing it, though. And again, for the listeners who are already writing their nastygrams, please send me your hate mail at reasonpress.net. Attention, Matt. I mean, that's where I get my hate mail. And, just bring it. But I'm not insulting this person. I hate doing these stories that involve children. Because these children
it's
are probably, they're very good kids, I'm sure. And they've, she seems to have lived a life of privilege. The
middle class England, of course she has.
The worst thing that she can think of that she has to endure is French class. If that's the worst thing that happens in your life, you've got a pretty good life. I must say. So this is not her fault. This is good. I'm glad that, I wish more kids could live lives of privilege and protection in some bit of shelter. The kids that I grew up with did not live that life of privilege. None of them took French. And if you ask them about the worst thing that happened to them in their day, it wasn't that they had to sit through French class. I can tell you that right now. But I'm not criticizing her. I'm criticizing the effort of trying to mold her into a Christian mouthpiece. And in so doing, I think, distort her view of the world. Why are we doing that to our kids? Why are we doing that? What would have been useful if she had joined, say, a debate team in a school. She would have stopped that rocking, that's for sure. That wouldn't fly. She would have substantive points. She would have a much better roadmap than the typical Christian sermon. She would be much more equipped to think more deeply about things, pros and cons and such. Debate team, join that. Preachers Club, you're wasting your time.
Amen. Sorry, join the debate club.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel almost transported back a little bit, and I'm having to bring myself back to the present here with that. more stories that I will share on some other show at some other time, from my youth. But yeah, there you go. Thanks so much. We got a chance to talk about some statistics. There are other statistics I want to talk about. We got a chance to see more Christian cancel culture today. And finally, we got a chance to see Christian children being given a subpar education when it comes to something like oration. Thanks, church. You've done her no favors. And you folks, you already know where to reach me. Matt, tell them where they can reach you and give them some bit of your show and why they would want to.
Well, Still Unbelievable in all your favorite podcasting places, reasonpress@gmail.com. And our current episode is an episode on hell, why eternal damnation is passe and not right, and God is a God of universalism. It's proving to be quite a popular episode, getting lots and lots of downloads. Join the crowd, listen to the episode, buy the book, listen to Pastor Derek. Got something interesting coming up in a week's time. I'm doing a solo show. Enjoy it as I pull apart a YouTube video that I picked out late last year. And there's some stuff coming up. We've got a gun show, which I'm still editing. So that will come up probably tail end of February. Look forward to that one. Yep. Things still going on and Still Unbelievable.
I'll give you
explosions and all sorts.
I'll give you a gun show right now.
Long sleeves, long sleeves. None of that fornication here, mate.
Sorry about that.
Cool. I need to cool down now.
Don't make me show you my six-pack.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't. Is it a 5-pack? 3 down one side, 2 on the other because of the woman? Oh, never.
Mine is more of a kegger, but that's all right. Look, that's great. I would have loved to have been a part of that universalism conversation because I find it more interesting all the time. And one of the things that's interesting is how many more people seem to be coming on board who are Christians.
There seem to be,
coming on board with universalism. Your solo show, you said that it was going to be based on a video that you found last year. Not terribly descriptive.
You're right, not terribly descriptive, because I can't remind me off the top of my head what it's called.
I see. So you're not trying
I tell you
to
what,
keep
I'm
it
still
secret.
sharing the screen, so let's see if I can show you on the episodes list. Inside, it's called Debating Evolution. And I review a creationist podcast that gives tips on how to debate evolution with an atheist. With Joel Settecase. I've covered him before, so I'm giving him another roasting. So there you go. That's what you've got.
Well,
to be published on the 9th of February.
Have you already done it?
Enjoy, people. A rare glimpse into the inside workings of Still Unbelievable.
Excellent. All right. Well, that sounds very, very interesting. I don't get a chance to listen to as many podcasts as I like. And so one of the benefits of having you on the show is you talk about your podcast and I can think, okay, yeah, I want to go and listen to that one. Usually the ones I want to go listen to are ones that have yet to be edited and posted. And by the time they get posted, I've forgotten that they've been done.
Got bored of waiting.
There's a big difference, folks, between how we do things over on this side, the right side, and how they do things. When I do a podcast, it goes directly on to
My workflow is so long, even I have forgotten what content's coming up.
I mean, Dale, the one thing that he took from me is he does a show. In fact, he's faster than me because he does them live. And then they're just automatically up there. He does no editing. I doubt he knows how. It's just automatically on. Me, I take him and I try to do a little bit of editing, not for the copy,
I
but
can take 20 minutes out of a 2-hour recording through just cleaning up the audio and taking out silences, ums, ahs, artifacts, etc. I am saving my listeners time by spending 8 hours taking 20 minutes out of a 2-hour audio.
However, listeners get more hours of podcast from me because I don't give a damn. And so look, guys, you can have two choices. You got to choose one. You can have better, more professional podcasts, or you can have more podcasts. They seem to prefer more podcasts. However, you have a bigger audience than I do, and so they seem to prefer better podcasts. So there
We're
you go.
fishing in different ponds. That's what it is, David.
If you like more, I am more. If you like better, he is better. Undoubtedly.
I'll try and take that as graciously as I possibly can.
Well, I mean, I don't see how I could get more of a compliment than to say you are better, but I can fix it to make me look better if you like. I'm a volume guy. Once I do a podcast, once I've had it conceived, once I've done the recording, I do what in the industry is called knifing the baby. I want it out of my life as fast as possible so I can have another baby. So we're going to go ahead and end this show so that I can knife the baby. I don't know how we got here, but
I'm sure there's an abortion joke in there somewhere, but let's not go there.
No, if I had only found the stop button sooner. Hang it. All right, folks.
Have a good one, David. Until next time.
And the same to you, or my tagline, because I've been working on this tagline.
Oh, awesome.
Until next time, I'll see you in the comments. In the meantime, I'm out.